On this episode of How to Actually Change the World, we talk with Dr. Joseph Bucci, Associate Professor and Department Chair for Business Leadership and Management. Dr. Bucci tells us stories from his new book, available now, Redemption, Inc. Enjoy.
All right. Well, this is awesome. I'm so excited to be here with two really great people. Welcome, everyone, to How to Actually Change the World. We're really excited to be here today. We have a special guest, Dr. Bucci. But before we introduce Dr. Bucci, my name is Darvin Muentes.
And I'm Ray Pearson-Ben.
And we're your hosts, and we're excited to be here with you today. Please like and subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that bell notification. It'll notify you every single time that our podcast drops. So without further ado, Dr. Bucci.
Hi.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
That's
awesome,
good.
Actually. Yeah.
Good. We're really excited to have you on the show. We are excited because this show is all about showing people, really great people who are from the university, people who are affiliated with us, and you are very affiliated.
I guess
with
they
the
were
university.
all on vacation this week. So
We've had the benefit of spending some time with you, so I'm excited that for others, they're going to get a chance to be introduced to this amazing.
That's
Yes.
great.
This
Well, you're very
amazing
kind.
professor.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so
so
much.
why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, just help our audience get to know you a little bit.
Well, it all started when I was born, and it was downhill from there. I've been here for 11 years, but really started my career in a HR role, and I was in a nonprofit, and one of my leaders directed an HR agency, and I worked with him. Wanted to get into professional ministry. I did that for a while, till one day when my wife came to me and said, I don't know about you, but I hate this and I'm leaving. So it seemed like it was a good time for a career change because it was very stressful and that. And I think we were sorting through really how we could serve the Lord. You know, I'm grateful that she's still with me 40 years this
Praise
year.
God.
Wow.
Congratulations.
And,
That's awesome.
You know, if you're married, you know that there are seasons when you are on the same page, or you're trusting that the Lord is leading this one and you're going to support them. So I learned a lot through that, and I think it's really made me the person that I am. When I talk about business, I understand from a professional ministry perspective how that works. It wasn't a good fit for us. And I'm seeing there's a lot of young men who are actually dropping out right now and getting into business careers. I know several who have done that. So I think that is changing. But for us, it gave me a background in ministry, and then I got back into business with my HR background and worked in a Christian-owned business for a number of years. And that kind of helped me formulate a lot of the philosophy I have about business as a particular calling, no lesser than any other calling, that you can serve the Lord by hiring people, by paying taxes, and especially by putting people in roles where they can fulfill their calling and use their talents and abilities to serve customers. So that's kind of what I do now. I've been beating the drum for that for several years. And because I got into higher ed and needed to get a dissertation, a doctorate, did some research on redemption. Redemption's critical to me. I know what Jesus Christ has done for me. And I started asking the question, where's redemption in the management literature? And as an HR guy, I looked at it from an HR perspective. Well, you've got 10 people reporting to you, and you say, well, this one, is not working out really well, so we use discipline on them, and maybe they'll turn their life around. And so that's redemption. But really, if you think about redemption, Jesus being our intermediary, the advocate with the Father, redemption is really someone who's failed completely and is reliant on a second chance, an opportunity. So when I started seeing that, I started doing research, and my initial research, I looked at 18 studies on this, people being reinstated, and for all different reasons. And none of them performed as well as they had. A lot of them said they were bulletproof now. Hey, I got back with the company and I can do no wrong. So the question is, are there people who get the second chance and who actually flourish? And I interviewed some people where that happened, and I tried to track how that worked with the managers. And that became my dissertation. That became my first book called Redemptive Leadership. Plug for that. But that ended up being an academic book. It wasn't, I can't even get it for less than $130. It's very expensive.
Well, I'm listening to you talk, and I hear that you've been in so many different roles throughout your experience and your professional experience, and now you're bringing all of the things that you've learned from that here to the university. Can you tell me how those roles have worked here at the university and why it's fueled what you believe is your calling towards the redemption?
Sure. Well, that's great. So one role being I have my freshmen come in and I have them do this exercise in the Intro to Business class, and you watch them respond to business, and they start saying, business is corrupt, business people just want your money, they don't treat their employees well. So I take all these thoughts and I put them on a PowerPoint slide and I flash it on the screen and I say, do you really believe this? Do you really believe that business is like this? Because I can show you examples where there's corruption in other fields. Do you really want to be a business major if you're going into it with this idea about how corrupt business is?
Yeah.
Can you not see that we're able to take businesses places where professional ministries cannot go? You know, people have to go into countries as, English teachers or in some other role. They have to pretend to be something that they're not because they want to sneak the gospel in, right? Where you can open doors through business, providing opportunities for people and communicate the gospel. That way, we have a gentleman who speaks in our class, our intro class, who's in China. He's heads a group of investors, and they look for they're in China, and they look for two things. They look for a return on investment and a return on faith. They're Christians. If they go into a community and they can propagate the gospel successfully, but the people don't do well, they sell the business. If they go into a community and the business does exceedingly well, but the gospel is not being communicated and people are not benefiting from that, they sell the business.
Wow.
They want both.
Yeah.
So so since I've been on kind of both sides of this, I really think it allows me to be able to see this and communicate this and challenge our students to see business as a viable career, not as an alternative. Oh, I couldn't be a pastor, so now I have to be an accountant. And you go into businesses and you help them not just with ethics, you help them with justification. Where is Jesus in accounting, right? Being able to articulate a company's vision and its success by looking at numbers. Are we profitable for the reasons that we originally intended, or are we somehow not communicating with our customers the accuracy of that? So for example, oil companies and how successful they're being right now, and there certainly is a lot of criticism of that. As a business person, I don't want to accept the fact that they're gaining profits at our expense. I want to believe that those profits are because they have now reaped the benefit of their investment, and they're going to take that and they're going to help to try and provide better pricing for us. While most people might be very critical of the big bad companies, I try not to do that at first blush, and try and help my students to do that. So am I naive? I don't think so. I think that certainly there are people who are out for themselves, and certainly in business there is opportunity for that, but there's also tremendous opportunity for people to express themselves, their talents, finding the role that God would have them to fulfill. I mean, God created Adam, and in Genesis 2:15 he says, you're in the garden, you're working. Work is an opportunity to express oneself, to bless others. Genesis
serve.
1:28. Be fruitful and multiply, bless others with the fruit of the land that I've given to you. And if you can make a profit doing that, well, he didn't quite say that. That's kind of my interpretation. That's the business leader's Bible.
I hear what you're saying, though, because, just speaking to your students and letting them know that people are flawed. And so whenever you add people to an equation, then it depends on the people that you have there. And so it just depends on what people they intend to be when they go into that industry.
There's a study, there's a study that I quote, 75% of people display aberrant behavior on the job. And that is anywhere from lateness, absences, all the way to extreme behavior. So when we think that we're hiring just, good old people and we're going to find the best out of this bunch, and I don't remember what class we had together, but in the HR class, we take 100 people and we try and distill it down to the best 2 people, right? That doesn't mean that they come with all the, everything's working correctly. And so to understand that as a human being, as a manager, with the opportunity to be a shepherd and a steward over that gift of God, providing dignity to those people to work and to express themselves and to care for their families. That's why, when you look at ex-convicts, going back to the book, you look at ex-convicts who get out of prison. I was reading an article this morning. The estimated unemployment rate for ex-convicts is 27%, right? 60% of them go back to their original employer because no one else will hire them. 3/4 of them, if they don't find work within a year, have to work. There are some people who are living under bridges. These are God's creation, and they're living under bridges because no one will employ them. What are they to do? So that doesn't justify, right? There's no justification for poor behavior, but it explains why people in desperate situations may do things, right? You go back to Les Miserables, right? And how the bishop was so kind, and that broke the heart of the gentleman because he only knew one way. So he was able to find a different way. And that's what we need to be about. I think, Christians need to be about expressing our values in the marketplace. It may not all be redemption. Can I tell you another story? I got a lot of stories.
Please.
I know you guys are the hosts here. So my original work on this was a group of 46 business people, identified Christian business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders of nonprofits. So a series of questions. Does God guide your decision making? Yes. You pray about certain. Yes. Is faith an influence in your business? Yes. Okay. So then, would you rehire a terminated employee? No. Would you hire an ex-convict? No. Would you hire a former drug addict? No. So now I'm setting them up, right? You have to understand that survey work. You cannot just draw a conclusion. Well, they're not really acting as Christians. No, I set them up with a series of questions that they didn't answer in a particular way. Maybe they support their church very strongly. Maybe they take from their profits and they support missions. I worked on a business in Philadelphia. 10% of their profits went to missions work, right? So then I ran that survey again when I came to Regent University. And the thing was, when you compared the two groups, the group of faith identified business people were more likely to allow faith and prayer to guide their decision making. However, when you compared the two groups, there was no difference between the control group of general business people from the Chamber of Commerce and the group that I had as to whether they would offer second chances. No difference.
Wow.
So why? Why, when you have this tool in your hands to provide employment, it's going to take some work. The book, my new book, Redemption Inc., talks about some business offer counseling and coaching and helping people because they're raw. They've been isolated maybe in prison, or they've come out of a life-controlling problem. They've been through a drug program, or they've been abused. There was one woman, it talks about in the book, she worked here at Regent University, and she was making a presentation in her MBA program telling about how I want to start a business that's going to help women who are abused and they're in these terrible situations. She describes this woman who is fearful and her husband's being watched by the FBI and the police, and she's afraid to do anything, and she's under this tremendous pressure. And she said, I want to take care of people like that. And that woman was me. And I started weeping.
Wow.
How come I didn't know this? How could I work with you and not be aware of this? Yeah. Those aren't things that people want to tell you, but all around us, if we took the time to hear your story and your story, you could tell us, oh yeah, there was a time when I really struggled. And God brought someone around, a boss, a pastor, or someone to offer you that encouragement. And that's what we are to people through work. If work is so meaningful, and if people have, the propensity to fail and fall short, can you see now how businesses have the opportunity to complete the cycle?
Yeah.
I've been through a drug program or whatever. Now I need someone to hire me. That drug program can't hire me. Someone needs to hire me and complete the cycle. Someone needs to be my advocate. That's redemption.
Wow.
Well, I think, Dr. Bucci, and this is just me being transparent, that I believe that my experience out in working in the secular business world, I was utilizing the secular business world and applying that to my thought for business rather than taking what I know of my faith and applying that to my business. And I think that there probably will be listeners who've thought about that and that you've taken on or embraced the standard that they say if you do this and do that, you're out of here. And that they've embraced that law or standard and have not applied the fact of redemption or the fact of forgiveness and then what's next. And I think that's super interesting. And we chatted about the book, and I think that people need to hear about this book. This book is one that will certainly get you to think about who you are and who you want to be out there in the business world.
Yeah, and I will actually be getting to the book here shortly. We're going to take a very quick break, and then we'll be back in to talk about your book and some more of the stories. Please give us all the stories. We're loving this. This is awesome, and this is great for our audience to hear too. Hearing redemption happen in this way and thinking about redemption within the workplace, especially since you said you went to find the literature and it was like non-existent, essentially, And so finding it and then going out and doing the studies and saying, wow, there are people that are doing this. This is happening. That's amazing.
So stay tuned
yes.
because Dr. Bucci is about to change how you think.
Yes. All right, so we'll take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Your college degree should open doors of opportunity. At Regent University, we believe that rigorous, relevant, respected education can prepare you for a lifetime of impact and influence. Choose from over 150 areas of study available online and on campus in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Our motto and our commitment to you is Christian leadership to change the world. Prepare for your profession and discover your purpose at America's premier Christian university. Apply today at www.regent.edu. All right, so we're back, and we were just left off talking about your new book, and we're so excited about this new book. We'd love for you to tell us a little bit about it. Ray actually had a really great question.
This is the thing. I just would like you to give the premise of the book in a snapshot because I want to save all this time for discussion.
Yes.
Well, thanks. So I did my original book, and then I went to a Christian publisher because I thought it was really more of a leadership book, and they said, well, we wouldn't hire this because it's all about business. And I was like, there are business people who are Christians, It's
allowed.
The person said, well, our people are not really interested in business and redemption. We'd be interested perhaps in redemption in other fields. So that was a little bit of a wet blanket. But, I just honestly really prayed about it. And God brought people into my sphere of influence where I could I heard a redemption story. I mentioned earlier the woman at the MBA presentation. As soon as I heard that story, I sat down with her. I would love to interview you. I had a young man in one of my classes, it may have been in the same class, who was in the Navy and should have been dishonorably discharged, just a screw up, just did everything wrong, just rebellious, from the street, rebellious. But the Navy has this thing called the Custodial Corrections Unit. It's their lowest level of correction. I guess Leavenworth, we all know, but this is the lowest level one, right? And all the officers volunteer to be in this program. And what they do is it's scared straight type of thing. That's what they used to say. And so they break these kids. And the ones who break have the potential to reflect again on what this means to them if they want to be in the service. And that happened to this young man. He found Jesus Christ, and he got recommitted to his service, and he went back and he finished up. So all different kinds of vehicles. They were talking about a pastor. Very interesting. And the survey information in here from a survey that was done about how some denominations view restoration. No, they can never be restored. Some say, well, it's accepted that they'll have to be out of their pulpit for a year if they're caught in sexual sin or some situation. In this case, it was sexual sin. But very interesting. Some denominations, and again, read the book, are like, that's not really something that you need to be removed from. It's just very interesting how people respond to this kind of thing. But there was no plan. There's no plan for getting this person back. If a person is called by God to be in that role and then they fail, I can tell you there are some, John MacArthur is one who would say can never go back in. And yet we look at Gordon MacDonald, who very successful pastor, wrote a lot of good books, failed, had an opportunity to be restored. Would we say that he has not been used by God to touch people in that situation, not more empathetic to people? I'd have a hard time qualifying, and saying, oh, this person yes and this person no.
Yeah, for sure.
So a lot of stories. Green Beret, blown up one too many times. His whole team gets the Purple Heart. Realizes there's something wrong. Used to go up in helicopters, jump out of helicopters, no problem. Suddenly getting sick, helicopters. The thing that brought it to a head, he's in a live training and falls, loses his balance, falls, can't protect his fellow soldiers.
Wow.
Has to acknowledge that something's not right. They are trained. You cut off their left arm, they're still shooting with their right,
absolutely.
right? They are impervious to pain and defeat. Well, what happens if they are suffering with something, right? And the situation with TBI, traumatic brain injury, it represents so many different ways, but it's only treated one way. So this man's being treated, things aren't right, arguing, screaming at wife. I've got to get help with this. In his case, there was a lot of self-help, reading, talking to different people, working his way back. He's now in our law school. After being failed, after coming out, spent his entire career doing this, what to do now. An opportunity for redemption to take that energy and to use it. Also started a CBD business to help other people with pain. Just incredible stories. Two guys named Chris, great story. One very successful African-American salesperson for a major corporation. Another guy, wealthy family, both he and his brother got addicted to heroin. They meet, again, they grew up together like blocks away from each other, kind of knew each other. They reconnect at the funeral of the brother, of the one who died of heroin. The other guy's still addicted. This guy, who's very successful, leaves that business, feels God is leading him to develop other people in the business. He's kind of in a pastoral role, gets ordained, I believe, but he's coaching people. His ministry is business. His ministry is helping people be successful. Challenges this other guy, works with him, says, listen, if you leave that heroin, you can be successful in this business. They acquire a little business. They're working it. The guy gets off of heroin. He gives him the business, gives it to him. That's it. The only thing you have to do is we have to take the profits from that business and we have to put it into a fund so that we can fund other people, failed people, former addicts, former criminals, into business opportunity, because business is a lifeline to finding success.
It is.
Now, these two guys, heroin addict is now the COO of a chain of smoothie stop stores. The pastor, business discipler, is now the CFO, and God has opened doors and opportunities for them to begin this chain of businesses. And such an incredible story. Young woman who was sorry.
Well, I want to stop
interrupt
you.
me, because
No,
I'll just keep rolling.
And this is because I want to grow, and I know that there are other people sitting at home listening to this that also want to grow in their thought process and in their spiritual walk with the Lord. I am so pleased that I serve a God of second chances, third chances, fourth chances, infinite amount of chances. I couldn't be who I am sitting here today if it wasn't for that. And you and I need to talk. And I probably need to share those things with those people at home. So I know that I am flawed, very flawed. But at what point, if you're a person sitting in that seat with somebody who has caused or had done some offense in business, at what point do you take, as a person who's a believer, that this is God revealing the character of this person for me, and that I need to take this in and know that this is what this person is, and protect myself or protect my organization, protect the people who work for me at this organization? And I'm dealing with classified information, people's personal information, people. At what point do we utilize the behavior and say, maybe this is a warning from the Lord, and I need to practice or walk in wisdom?
There's going to be some. We love it, and we know in our faith walk that Christ accepts everyone if they call and ask. Redemption occurs, right? And I talk about that in the book. I talk about the story about Ryan Leaf. Once the former second-round draft pick who just failed classically and continues to fail. Okay, some people may not find redemption in terms of career, in terms of position. They'll always find it in Christ if they reach out to Jesus Christ, right? There are some people, it's hard to accept that being on this side of the spiritual side, we know that Christ can redeem anyone. Thief on the cross. I'm a thief. I'm dying for my sin, for my crimes, okay? At the cross, redeemed, right? And yet there are some people we have to release into the care of the Lord, and that may mean releasing them from the organization. I mentioned in my first book about a company outside of Pittsburgh that actually is part of their hiring strategy. They will take people back who have worked for them before, who were immature, who demonstrated behaviors, the aberrant behavior, lateness, absences, carelessness, whatever it might be. And they will give them second chances under certain conditions. We're going to watch you more carefully. We're explaining to you very harshly, you're getting a second chance. It may work for some businesses. It may not work for others. My wife and I have this discussion all the time. She's in healthcare. In her situation, when she was a manager, had 100 people reporting to her, it wasn't going to work. And yet there are people who worked for her, who left her employment, who she told them, you shouldn't really hire this person again, and that person winds up in the organization somewhere else for whatever particular reason. We just have to, as people of faith, ask ourselves, where is Jesus in this business? Where am I able to express Jesus in this business, right? Again, it may not work for everyone. There's a book we use in the intro class. not my book, but it's a book about Christian-owned businesses. And it talks about how each one has a way it represents their faith. Some of them do it one way. Some of them do it a number of ways. I worked for a Christian-owned business for 14 years. They were in the inner city. They committed part of their profits to inner city ministries.
That's
okay,
awesome.
Would they rehire people? There were occasions where we were able to do that. I think what the challenge is, as people of faith, to say, how am I representing Christ in the way I do things? Where can I demonstrate my faith in a way that aligns with the values of the organization, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So redemption would align with an HR function because we can justify second chance. J.P. Morgan Chase is right now, talk about it in the book, giving second chance opportunities, hiring people in different situations where they're providing that, because it's a segment of the population, high unemployment, people need these opportunities.
Yeah.
In their situation, in certain conditions, it works. It used to be years ago, Men's Warehouse. The gentleman who owned Men's Warehouse, because of his own troubles and problems with alcohol abuse, he did not do background checks on people coming in. That's like unheard of,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now, do they maintain that policy today? I don't know. I know years ago I talked to somebody who worked in Men's Warehouse, and they said, "Well, we do background checks on certain roles, but generally we don't do that." Okay.
Wow.
Most, I think 93%, I say in the book, of HR departments do background checks on people, but when we move that check the box thing, that's a big movement now. Have you been convicted of a crime? If you give me the opportunity to represent that I want to earn a second chance, that I want to be given this opportunity, then that may lead to a profitable discussion and perhaps a diamond in the rough.
Absolutely.
But it's
so
just-
not just something you extend to someone just
Yeah,
off
just
the bat.
carte blanche,
So some
right.
a discernment there,
Oh,
and then
absolutely, sure.
the desire for the person to be better, and a transparency
Right.
with them telling
Right.
you where that came from, where the
Yeah.
behavior came
Right,
from,
right.
so that we can fix it.
I love this conversation, and like redemption for us, for believers, should be something that we desire and we are joyful over.
Absolutely.
So I think that this is such a great topic, especially for our listeners, and it's such a great topic for us to talk about. But we're out of time.
We're out of time. We're going to have to
We
do more of this talk.
Yes, we have. We've talked about so many stories.
Well,
You've
I might
given
be able
us.
to squeeze you in.
You have given us so many great stories, and I want our audience to know where they can get this book. So could you give us an idea of where they can get the book? It's out now, so
Yes.
that everyone can go
It's
get it.
available electronically, Kindle or Barnes & Noble ebooks, the Nook, or the paperback is available on Amazon and all the places you get books.
You buy your
Yeah,
book.
yeah,
That's right.
that's
It's
awesome.
definitely worth it. You've
Yes.
changed the way I think,
Yes.
and I appreciate that.
Yes,
I appreciate
and
the opportunity.
we like to ask one final question, and we will make the time for this final question. It's the namesake of our podcast. It's how does someone actually change the world from your
good
perspective?
Well, I actually wrote an answer to that. I tried to be smart. I have this philosophy. If I say something stupid between us, and maybe you'll forget. But if I say something stupid on tape, then it's stupid
lives.
for a long time. Yeah. And I actually do talk about that in the book, about people who can't escape their past behaviors because it lives on and no one forgets, which is unfortunate. I think. And I think I refer back to maybe a class that we had together. I think you need to be intentional about your values. Just know what those values are. And if you can keep them out front, then every day or every couple of days you can say, okay, am I really living those? So, I value redemption, intentionality, service, discovery, and persistence. So if I can keep those things in front of me and say, are these still relevant? Am I still living those things? Then it allows us to say, okay, we can change the world because we come at it with a winsome, excited approach. Hey, today is a new day me to express my values in
Yeah.
the marketplace. And let's do it. This is great.
Yeah. Well, that was a great answer. And
Thanks.
thank you so much for joining us on how to actually change the world. To everyone listening, thank you for listening. My name is Jarvin Muentes,
I'm Ray Pearson Ben.
and we are so thankful for you. Like I said at the beginning, like, subscribe, please hit that bell notification, and we'll see you on the next episode.
God bless.